I'm leaving you for my mistress. Leave the house and the car behind.
I got a sudden call from my husband, who was supposed to be on a business trip abroad, and he casually announced he wanted a divorce. But I wasn't that surprised. My husband has always thought he was the most important person in the family and looked down on me and our sons. So even though he suddenly told me he had a mistress, I figured he wouldn't have any problem cheating. But he kept talking on the phone, asking if I was surprised or saying he'd forgive me if I got on my knees and apologized. I let out a big sigh. Then, to tell my clueless husband a certain truth, I slowly began to speak. My name is Karen, a 46-year-old working housewife. I live with my eldest son, Sam, my younger son, David, and my husband, John. Sam just turned 17 this year and is busy studying for college entrance exams. David, on the other hand, is in the basketball club and isn't as good at studying, but he's working hard to become a professional player in the future. Both of them are my precious sons. They've long surpassed me in height, and it took a lot of hard work to bring them this far. That's because I've been working hard since I returned from maternity leave with David, having to manage household chores and child rearing in my busy schedule. Despite how busy I was, my husband, John, was uncooperative with housework and raising the kids. If my mom hadn't moved in to help with child rearing and housework, I would have reached my limit long ago. However, John once said to me at that time,
"Aren't you relying on your mom too much? You should have more awareness as a mother. Listen, a mother should be."
Instead of helping, he was giving me a lecture. During that busy time, I was too preoccupied to listen to his lectures properly, but apparently my attitude bothered him. Once, at John's company's barbecue, one of his colleagues said,
"Your wife has been working hard since she returned from maternity leave. That's impressive. Most people can't do that."
No. She's all about work and doesn't do much housework or child rearing. So it's tough.
John replied. Then a female colleague nearby said, looking exasperated,
"What are you talking about, John? Your wife has been taking care of the kids during the entire barbecue. You've just been drinking and enjoying yourself. Why don't you help her a bit?"
Yo, you might get divorced for being a useless husband.
A male colleague jokingly said, but in reality, John wasn't very dependable. Despite such incidents, instead of reflecting, John became a more annoying husband over time, giving more orders without lifting a finger. One day, while I was at work, David's homeroom teacher called. "What? David has a fever." Yes, I'll come pick him up." He had quite a high fever and needed to be picked up. But I was at work and couldn't leave. I also had an important meeting coming up. I remembered that John was off that day and called him to ask if he could pick David up.
What? I'm busy right now.
"But you're off today, right? Please, can you pick him up?" I begged, but John, sounding annoyed, refused.
Isn't that a mother's job? People would look at me weird if I picked him up. You can just go.
"But I'm busy with work."
Your job isn't that important, is it? Just leave and pick him up.
With that, John hung up. I was stunned for a while, holding the phone tightly, unable to believe how terrible John's response was. Then I remembered that Sam's school ended in the morning, so I quickly called him.
Wow, that's serious. I'll go pick him up. Don't worry about David, I'll take care of him.
When I explained the situation, Sam immediately said he would go, and I felt relieved. I didn't want to bother Sam, who was working hard for his college entrance exams, but with John acting like that, I had no other choice. After that, I rushed to finish my work, explained the situation to my boss, and got permission to leave early. When I got home and went to David's room, my 2 sons welcomed me. Sam had been taking care of David the whole time. Beside David's bed were the chicken soup and cold medicine that Sam had prepared. Sam, thank you so much. You really helped me.
It's okay, Mom. You worked hard today.
Sam smiled at me, and I smiled back. Even David, lying in bed with a fever, said welcome back in a dazed voice.
David, you should keep resting.
As Sam tucked his brother in, I couldn't help but feel tears welling up, seeing how much he had grown. Meanwhile, while Sam was taking care of his brother, John was.
You're home early. I'm hungry. Make me dinner.
He was just lounging around in the living room, scrolling on his phone. When I subtly asked Sam, he said John hadn't helped at all with David's care. I was exasperated, wondering if he was really the father of 2 children. A few days later, David's cold completely cleared up, and our daily life returned to normal. The only difference was that since David's illness, my sons had become cold towards John.
Dad really doesn't care about me, does he?
I think I understand a bit of what Mom goes through now.
They started avoiding John. But John himself didn't seem to notice at all. On the contrary, he was in a great mood because of his upcoming business trip abroad. The trip was supposed to last about 2 weeks. Despite it being a work trip, John was completely in vacation mode, and I was exasperated.
I have meetings about the business trip, so I'll be home late.
He had told me that beforehand, but coming home late almost every night was concerning. Often, when John came home, the family was already asleep, but he didn't care and never tried to be quiet when closing the door. Lately, the noise of him coming home often woke me up. Moreover, he got annoyed if I was already asleep when he came back.
It's nice that you get to sleep before your hard-working husband comes home.
He would say things that made no sense just to be mean. I was busy with work too, so it should have been fine for me to go to bed earlier. I thought that, but if I actually argued back, it would only escalate, so I could only ignore his remarks. One day, John was supposed to come home after 11 p.m., so I decided to go to bed early. Just as I was starting to doze off, my blanket was suddenly yanked off, and I was roughly shaken awake.
Hey, wake up! Your husband's home.
John, who was drunk and red-faced, had forcibly woken me up. The smell of alcohol was so strong that it filled the room, making me cover my mouth. "Are you drunk? Knock it off. I have to work early tomorrow," I retorted without thinking, but John mumbled something at me, slurring his words so badly I couldn't understand him. Then he collapsed onto the bed and fell asleep. The next morning, John seemed to remember what had happened the night before and glanced at the breakfast on the table.
I don't need breakfast.
With those words, he left for work quickly. It was probably his way of getting back at me for talking back yesterday. My two sons, who saw this, looked exasperated.
What was that? Is he a kid or something?
Mom, can we eat this?
Yes, go ahead. The boys finished the leftover breakfast and, with a cheerful thanks for the meal, headed off to school with smiles on their faces. The night before John's overseas trip,
All right, I'm all set.
John was happily humming to himself as he prepared. The boys watched him with cold eyes. Recently, they had been thoroughly fed up with John's selfish behavior. Even when he was in the living room, the boys didn't speak to him. But John, oblivious to their cold stares, cheerfully talked to them.
I'm going abroad for work. No souvenirs for you guys.
That's fine. We don't really need anything.
Sam replied calmly, and John looked a bit annoyed. David didn't even look at John.
How disrespectful. What if Dad doesn't come back from his trip? Maybe I don't want to come back to such ungrateful kids.
John's attempt to elicit some affection made me frown. This kind of behavior is something children do, not grown adults with their own children. The boys seemed equally unimpressed. Sam let out a big sigh and turned away. David, giving John a cold glance, turned to Sam.
Hey Sam, I need some help with my studies.
Sure, let's go to your room.
John watched in shock as his two sons ignored him and left the living room.
What the hell was that attitude?
I was about to say, "It's your fault," but John suddenly glared at me, and I couldn't get the words out. Then John said something absurd.
It's your fault for how you raised them.
What?
Because of you, they're disrespectful to me. Make sure you straighten them out before I get back from my overseas trip.
With those words, he stomped out of the living room. A week after John left for his business trip, we were having a very peaceful time as a family. But one afternoon, I got a call from John while I was at work. "Hello."
Hey, how's it going?
John's voice on the other end was slightly slurred. He sounded pretty cheerful, clearly drunk. "What do you want? I'm at work." I tried to hide my exasperation, but instead of getting annoyed, John sounded even more cheerful and said something outrageous.
So, it's out of the blue, but I'm moving in with my mistress, so I want a divorce. Leave the house and the car behind.
What?
You didn't seem to notice, so I'll tell you. I've been cheating on you for 2 years.
According to John, this business trip was actually a vacation with his mistress. The work part was a complete lie, and he was currently enjoying a trip with her in a tropical resort.
My mistress, Olivia, is way prettier than you. She still embraces her femininity. She's kind, attentive, and just wonderful.
John kept bragging about his mistress Olivia, even though I didn't ask. And then he said,
It's your fault for not taking care of me that this happened. If you get on your knees and apologize, I might forgive you.
He was clearly drunk, but he sounded serious. He seemed to think that by confessing his affair in his drunken state, I would be so shocked that I would do whatever he said. As if that would ever happen. John took my silence as an opportunity to keep insulting me. I interrupted his rant with a big sigh. And then, to tell the clueless John the truth, I slowly began to speak. We don't have the house or the car anymore.
Huh?
John's voice sounded deflated. I almost laughed at how pathetic he sounded, but continued. Why don't you come back right now and see for yourself? Anyway, I'm at work, so I need to hang up.
Wait.
John tried to say something, but I mercilessly pressed the end call button. The next day, after finishing work and getting home, I was relaxing when John called again. Hello.
There's a for sale sign on my house, and the car is gone too. What the hell did you do?
John jumped straight to the point, and I replied, exasperated. What did I do? I just sold my own house. The car was in my name, so I took it to my new place.
What? Your house? What are you talking about? That's my house. How could you sell it without asking me?
Were you really unaware of this? I couldn't believe my husband was this clueless. I found myself holding my head in disbelief. To make him understand the reality, I decided to explain everything from the beginning. The house we had been living in was in my name. We had planned to get a joint mortgage before building the house, but during the process, it was revealed that John had a significant amount of debt.
Sorry for hiding it.
Sorry won't cut it. We won't get the mortgage approved like this.
I said, exasperated, and John pleaded me.
Could we get the mortgage in just your name? I'll still help with the payments.
Feeling guilty, he kept apologizing until I agreed, and we ended up getting the house with just my mortgage. As a result, the house and land were in my name. This was before David was born. John initially gave me some money every month, but soon he started delaying, and eventually, he stopped giving me money altogether. Around this time, I found out I was pregnant with David. Since I was paying the mortgage by myself, I had to work hard after returning from maternity leave. I kept asking John to help with the mortgage, and he'd say okay, but he never actually did. While he did provide living expenses, handling the monthly mortgage payments alone was a huge burden.
I can't rely on John. I need to protect our kids' lives.
Back then, I was so focused on protecting my kids that I didn't have time to think about myself. If I had more time and composure, I might have lectured John and demanded he pay up. But back then, I didn't have the luxury of time or emotional space. Thanks to my hard work after maternity leave, I managed to get promoted without falling behind my peers. With the promotion, my salary increased. After the kids grew older, I could work overtime and significantly boost my income. I worked hard and paid off the mortgage a few years ago. I thought we would live in this house for the rest of our lives, but I never imagined things would turn out like this. After I explained the situation to John, he still didn't seem convinced.
No, this is ridiculous. I'm their father. The house should be in my name since I'm the head of the family.
John thought that being the man and the head of the family meant the house was automatically his. I sighed and continued to explain patiently. Then why was I able to sell the house and land? If you were the owner, I couldn't have done that.
That was because you.
Someone who isn't the owner can't just sell a house or land. Think logically. John fell silent. It seemed he was starting to understand the reality of the situation. By the way, the car he mentioned was also in my name, and I paid for it. John sold his own car to pay off his debts and had been using mine ever since. When I used a car, he had to ride a bike, and he always seemed unhappy about it.
Why do I have to ride a bike?
Seeing John grumble about it, I thought, if he was that unhappy, he should buy his own car with his own money. Did John think my car was his too? John always looked down on our family, seeing us as beneath him. He probably lived under the assumption that whatever belonged to the family was his. I couldn't believe I had managed to live with someone so selfish for so long. As I was feeling exasperated, John suddenly raised his voice, having realized something.
Wait a minute. Why did you sell the house while I was on my business trip?
Oh, that. I've known about your affair for 2 years. I was preparing for a divorce all this time. I sold the house because I knew you would cling to it even after the divorce. I sold the house to protect the lives of our children and myself.
Huh?
John's voice sounded pathetic. Yes, I had known about John's affair for a long time. 2 years ago, when John came home drunk one night, he said something while I was helping him in bed.
Thanks, Olivia.
At that moment, John had a big smile on his face, looking genuinely happy. I couldn't remember the last time he had shown such a face in front of me. After calling out a strange woman's name, he fell into a deep sleep. Normally, a wife would be frantic, thinking her husband was cheating, but I chose not to confront him. By then, I had no feelings for John, so I honestly didn't care if he was having an affair. More importantly, without solid evidence, confronting him would likely result in him getting angry and making a fuss. However, John eventually exposed himself. Once, while his phone was left in the living room, a message from his mistress Olivia appeared, and David saw it. Another time, Sam saw him arm in arm with an unknown woman on his way back from tutoring. Both of them quickly realized John was cheating and reported it to me, looking exasperated. When I first heard that my sons had witnessed their father's affair, I was quite distressed. Finding out their father was cheating would be a shocking event for them. However,
Well, I figured Dad might do something like that.
Surprisingly, I'm not shocked at all. So, when are you getting divorced?
their nonchalant attitude caught me off guard. After that, I began gathering evidence of John's affair whenever I could find time from my busy work schedule. Because I've been so busy over the past few years, it took me 2 years to collect everything. John was pretty careless, but for some reason, he thought he was getting away with the affair. When John heard that the kids and I already knew about his affair, he sounded panicked on the phone.
No way. How did you find out?
Well, you were pretty careless. I gathered all the evidence without even hiring a private investigator. And by the way, I sold the house while you were on your business trip as a bit of payback for all the crap you've put us through. I had collected all the evidence and was wondering when to bring up the divorce. And then John mentioned his overseas trip. With a smug look, John talked about his trip, and I realized it was a vacation with Olivia, not a business trip. I decided it was the perfect opportunity and finalized the sale of the house. By the way, we are now living in a temporary apartment. It's far from the house we used to live in, so it will be hard for John to find us. Desperate, John said frantically.
Where are you now? I'll come over.
He still didn't understand the situation. We no longer considered John part of the family, yet he still thought he could be with us. There's no way I'm telling you. We're already divorced. I heard John gasp on the other end of the line. Yes, John and I were already divorced. Once, John and I had a big argument.
All you do is work. Get it together. You're a mother, aren't you? Take care of the house properly.
During that time, I was extremely busy, working overtime almost every day. The kids helped with the housework, understanding how busy I was, but John did nothing as usual. He was annoyed by the fact that I was busier than him and took out his unreasonable anger on me. You need to get it together. I'm doing the housework in between my busy schedule. You can't even take out the trash properly, so don't lecture me. Exhausted, I snapped and said some harsh words. But compared to John's usual verbal abuse, mine were mild. However, John lost it, slammed a completed divorce form in front of me, and yelled,
How dare you talk to your husband like that? Apologize now. If you don't, it's divorce.
John's face turned red with anger, and he was breathing heavily. Seeing him like that, I realized talking any further was pointless. So reluctantly, I apologized, but I kept the signed divorce papers, thinking they might come in handy. While John was on his trip, I submitted the divorce papers, and it was finalized. I was officially free from John.
Wait, I didn't really want to divorce you.
After cheating, you have the nerve to say that. I've wanted a divorce since 2 years ago. John, in a trembling voice, begged, but I coldly refused. Oh, and I'm not just stopping at divorce. I'm suing both you and Olivia for damages.
What?
Thanks to the evidence I gathered over the past 2 years, I've already identified Olivia's address. Olivia lives at her parents' house with her brother and his wife. She hardly does any housework, so her whole family resents her, but she's naively thinking she'll move out once she gets married. I found this information through Olivia's account on social media. She has a habit of posting everything that happens around her. It was incredibly useful for gathering evidence of the affair, but I kept that to myself. If she doesn't even do housework, she won't check the mail, right? Today, my lawyer is sending her a certified letter. Once it arrives, her family will find out about the affair. I had already asked my lawyer to send a demand for damages based on the evidence I collected. The lawyer is very efficient and quickly handled the necessary procedures. He assured me that the evidence I provided was sufficient to claim damages. This was good news for me, but it seemed like the worst for John.
You can't be serious. Hiring a lawyer, demanding damages. Do you know what you're doing?
What do you mean? I'll just get compensation from you and Olivia. It's no problem for me.
What? This is a problem for me. If Olivia's family finds out, they'll blame me too.
I responded calmly to John's panicked outburst. So what? We're divorced. What happens to you doesn't concern me or the kids at all. Oh, speaking of the kids, I'll be taking custody. You've hardly been involved in raising them, so you can't take care of them. John let out a guttural sound. It seemed he finally realized that I had completely cut ties with him.
Let me talk to the kids.
What?
They're there with you, aren't they? Let me talk to the kids.
I glanced to my side. Our temporary apartment was a bit small for the three of us, so it was easy for my sons to overhear my argument with John. At Sam's request, I had put the phone on speaker, so the boys had heard the entire conversation. Sam listened to John with a blank expression, while David was frowning deeply. I hesitated about letting them talk directly to their father, but Sam and David both looked at me and nodded firmly.
Hello, Dad.
Sam, thank God, you're okay.
John's tone implied I had harmed the kids, which annoyed me. Sam felt the same way, and angrily replied to John.
What do you mean, okay? Mom hasn't done anything bad to us. In fact, we're really happy she divorced you. And remember, you're the one at fault here. Mom and we are the victims, got it?
John was speechless at Sam's harsh words.
Hey, Dad, did you enjoy your overseas trip with your mistress?
David,
You said you wanted to talk to us, but what do you want to say? Were you planning to tell us we need a father or that we'd be sad without you?
John let out an inarticulate groan, clearly caught off guard. David responded with a voice full of disgust.
Actually, we don't need you at all. In fact, it's a relief. Thinking about not having to live with you anymore makes me excited for the future.
no way.
I feel the same as David. Living with you makes it hard to concentrate on my studies. Our family doesn't need you.
With their complete rejection, John started to cry. I'm not one to kick a man when he's down, but I had to say my final words. By the way, I've already informed your parents. They were completely disgusted with you. They said they won't help you at all if you get into trouble. John began to wail. His affair had cost him dearly. Well, goodbye. From now on, we'll communicate through lawyers, so this is the last time we'll talk. Enjoy your life with your mistress. John's voice echoed with despair on the other end of the phone. Ignoring it, I pressed the end call button. After that, I filed for damages for my lawyer. Since John had spent nearly everything except the living expenses he gave me, he had no savings and had to take out loans to pay the damages. He pleaded for help from his parents, but they refused to give him a single cent. Moreover, John had used up all his vacation days to go on dates with Olivia, who was off on weekdays, and still had to take unauthorized leave frequently. This greatly affected his performance reviews, and his chances of future promotions were gone. Even though he had been cheating as he pleased, John was deeply shocked when I divorced him. He couldn't focus on work and would likely be demoted eventually. I was exasperated, thinking he should have never cheated if it would shock him so much. Now he's struggling to make ends meet while repaying his debts. This information came from his parents, who showed no sympathy for their son. Olivia was also found out by her family and kicked out of the house. Her family seemed to be sensible people and even sent me a letter of apology through their lawyer. According to the letter, they disowned her and threw her out of the house without mercy. Olivia couldn't cover the damages even after exhausting her savings and had to take out loans. However, the lender seemed to be a kind of loan shark, and she was barely able to keep up with the interest payments. Currently, she's working multiple jobs to repay her debts, but I doubt that lifestyle will last long. Well, her fate isn't my concern anyway. Apparently, Olivia tried to steal John from me for his money. However, John's generosity was due to me paying off the house loan, and now that we were divorced, he had no such luxury. Olivia's plan was doomed from the start. I thought they would get married after our divorce, but surprisingly, they didn't. Olivia blamed John for the mess and broke up with him. In the end, John lost his family, his mistress, his money, his home, and his car. Currently, he lives alone in a run-down apartment that's about to fall apart. Meanwhile, I live peacefully with my 2 sons. Selling the house and car brought in a substantial amount of money, so I decided to buy a second-hand house. It's smaller than our previous one, but the previous owners took great care of it, and it looks almost new. My sons seem to love the house, and we live there happily every day.
Have a good one, Mom.
See you later.
Have a great day, both of you. Today, my sons headed to school with smiles on their faces. I sent them off with a smile as well, wishing in my heart that such happy days would continue forever.